Alright, draft physics video. It's kind of a crappy day, so a daylight video. No, close enough. A little crooked, but it'll have to do. I have to change the lighting in here. Really, it is a little brutal. But anyway, that's probably the wrong light to turn off, but it doesn't matter. We'll try that. So, a couple of things. So, Vic Mackey, an old nemesis, close enough. Smelly person of awful character. Posted some sort of comment that's sort of a context, I suppose, in the sense that some portion of physics, there's a little group of physicists somewhere saying, let's start over and try to get it right. And the irony is they all start over with the silliest axioms of quantum mechanics. So it's like they go find the experiments for which that are most kind of paradoxical or difficult to explain, and take those as axioms. And so instead of starting with the hardware, the stuff we do know about the Maxwell's equations or something, the inverse square law, start with a couple of basic ideas and then start over. They're starting over from the position of superposition in the sense of things being in two places at once and all that nonsense. And so, yeah, it's not really a start over when you start over based on the most stretched and tortured kind of experiments. I don't think that's a good starting place. You start with the stuff that's the routine, not the aberrant. But anyway. So there's this guy, Carl Dilkington. It's kind of a Dickington would be better, more suitable. So I just thought I'd read this preface to reposting his same comment on the same video, which is kind of incredible. And it was a response to the Vic Mackey comment, so I might as well read it first before I delete it. But it's just so obnoxious, you know. But it's all obnoxious. It's just horrible. Anyway, I've decided to copy and paste a reply which I made to another commenter here. So we post the same comment on the same video twice. The reason for copying it is, and I say this without ego, the following is the greatest comment I have ever written, and everyone deserves the benefit of my superior intellect and insight. But you're not smart enough to know that your comment wasn't invisible in any way. So they already had the benefit of it if they wished to be benefited by it. What the hell is that, Carl? You know, you're a disgrace to all the Carls. You know, all the rest of the Carls are going, oh shit, that Carl guy is really ruining it for Carls. Alright, so Vic Mackey posted a link, and he puts it in capital letters. Physicists want to rebuild quantum theory from scratch, and he posts this link to a reprint of an article from some magazine called Quantum Fun or something. It's not even in the review stream in terms of it's not a place you would submit for review because it's not in the community. It's a privately, like some rich guy just decides he wants to propagandize on science or something like that. So he says, there's your chance, Gary, go for it. Yeah, go for what chance? So again, just more bullshit. Like this wouldn't be a really legitimate cause that science probably should do every now is have a review and just try to see if we still have some artifacts in our understanding or whether we've jumped to a conclusion. Again, Einstein was right about a couple of things, and I think it can sort of be demonstrated he was right perhaps for the wrong reason. And perhaps some of the things that people think he was right about, like photons are material and they can be bent sideways. They can't be sped up or slowed down, but they can somehow be pushed side to side. That maybe that's bullshit. But you don't think it's worthy of that kind of responsible science where you actually sit down and say, yeah, okay, let's look at the stuff we really have good evidence for. You don't think that's a rational thing to do. Anyway, well, it's because you're a jerk. Okay, so here's the Carl Dickington comment that he thinks is so brilliant. So he's saying this to Vic Mackey. I think you're confused about what that article was really saying. Yes, in the sense that the title of the article was pretty much a lie, because they don't want to start from scratch. They want to start from spooky action at a distance as a fact. And our minds are controlling the universe. And, they want to start from the worst end of, at the anus of quantum mechanics. Not a good place to start. Was really saying, and also what actual physicists want. Yeah, well, it's pretty clear what actual physicists want, and that's to be loved. Fuck the truth. Just tell the people it's all magic and fun. Anyway, just because a pop culture clickbait online article Strig's words, physicists want to rebuild quantum physics from scratch in a particular order, doesn't mean necessarily that that's what physicists want, is an explanation of that. Whatever, you get the point. Everything is made of light and it travels in one direction until it bounces perpendicular. So, see, I don't know what that says. See, because he's talking about my theory. Anyway, so let's do this again. It's a very long sentence. Just because pop culture clickbait online article strings the words physicists want to rebuild quantum physics from scratch in a particular order doesn't mean, necessarily that what physicists want is an explanation that everything, so he's saying, so it doesn't mean that because there's an article written that way, it doesn't mean that physicists want my theory. Okay, so mine wouldn't be a from scratch starting over, and this is going to be his paraphrase of what I have argued for. Okay, got it. Everything is made of light. Well, I've sort of qualified that. Now, you can't understand the qualification. I'm sorry for you. But yes, everything's made out of force bits. That's right, little bits of energy. Not too much for you? Okay. Sorry. Didn't want to sorry, it hurts your brain to be able to imagine just for a minute that it was possible that it all breaks down to a simple mechanism, because it's physics. Anyway, alright. Everything is made of light, and it travels in one direction until it bounces perpendicular. So you put that in 4 quote things or something. So he doesn't really get this idea that there's 2 kinds of interactions fundamentally: head-on reflection and perpendicular change in direction. So that's too much for him also. And again, that's in the context of Richard Feynman stating in one of his lectures that it might all break down to something that simple. That would be the model that would make the most sense. He just didn't have it. He didn't have that model. But he liked that idea. But it's not a likable idea in your opinion. Okay. Got it. So he says, whatever the flying shit fuck that means. So, bouncing perpendicular, 2 things come in at an intersection. One goes this way, one goes that way. That's something you say, whatever the flying shit fuck that means. You can't understand that would be a mechanism possible. That there'd be 2 kinds of interactions fundamentally. Head on, and then at an angle. And the only rule here is that it doesn't do these angles. It just does the perpendicular one. But that's beyond your comprehension. You can understand bent space, and how somehow mass is felt by the universe and it bends and it does something, which doesn't even make any sense in 3 dimensions, as any logical person could say, right? The universe is 3-dimensional, bent space doesn't make any sense. So you're really talking about somehow the universe contracts pulls space in when there's mass from all directions. That makes sense to you. But this doesn't. Completely nonsensical. And let's just understand this simple mechanism combined with just two colors of car, blue car, red car, means there's direction changes, which can create circles, which is the trap that catches energy. And again, that's mockably stupid in some way, even though it creates the perfect, simple mechanism of a trap, a circular happening. The square is a circular event. So even though it creates a mechanism that could do exactly, turn photons into stored force, no, it's ridiculous. It's on its face ridiculous. Yeah. So what? I don't know what the proper way to mock you beyond your mockery, beyond mocking it. But I mean, it's like saying checkers is an illogical game or something. Its rules are illogical and nonsensical. What do you mean the checker can only move sideways and forward and it can only jump diagonally? What is that? That's a crazy rules. No, simple rules can create very complex things, and that's the whole point. And that's what a physicist should be looking for. Shouldn't be looking for more complicated as you go down. Should be looking for simpler as you go down. But you don't go. That's an abhorrent concept from your perspective. Got it. All right. Anyway, whatever the shit that fuck that means, that's not scientific. Sorry. So again, it's not scientific to do exactly what Feynman described as what he thought. It probably comes down to we just can't see it. So Feynman wasn't scientific because he was applying some sort of rational logic to how the universe probably works. So as long as you're okay with saying that, then I'll accept your insult. If you're also going to insult Feynman for ever saying something so stupid. Okay. Nice try, but it's time to let the folks who understand the difficulties of creating a model, so the people who have failed to create one. It's time to let the people who have failed to create a model that's rational, that doesn't invent dark matter or dark energy or some other special sauce to define everything that happens. So the science that comes up with a brilliant idea about the virtual photon, they're the ones that should make the model. They make invisible pieces of the engine. They should be the mechanics. The mechanics should have a bunch of invisible tools and invisible parts to fix your engine. Because that always works. That's a great idea. Yeah, and if it works, if all you really want the engine to do is sit there and look pretty, yeah. Fucking idiots. Anyway, let's see. It's a nice try, but it's time to let the folks who understand the difficulties of creating a model that correctly predicts the behavior of quantum particles to work on creating a better theory on their own. So again, their theory is completely dependent on things they haven't seen, things that they describe as different things when they might just be two of the same thing in close proximity, like a muon or something. The standard model is a pile of shit, and you're going to sit there and say, no, let those people do some more building because they're building brilliant things. They're getting to the truth. Well, I think you're deluded. You're a fool. Yeah, you don't really understand physics. Because there's nothing really in 99% of the real processes in physics that have anything to do with all that strangled, accelerated, created nonsense. 99% of physics is pretty much electrons being influenced by force and moving because of it, and capturing force by absorbing it into the matter. The matter bits absorb the force, collect it, and store it. And that doesn't require any of your woo particles. Anyway, on their own. Right now, quantum mechanics and general relativity are modeled with different equations. Well, it's not just different equations, they're different axioms, and that's the whole fucking problem. The biggest force in the universe was taken out of physics by bent space, never to be seen again. Gravity can only do one thing. The force that creates gravity is a one-trick pony because of Einstein. You lose its capacity, the energy of it, to do other things like magnetism. And that's why you have to make up invisible virtual things to take the place of the real thing you took out of physics. I mean, it's an easy diagram of your failure, the failure of your people, to recognize the simple truth that you really can't create two fundamentally differently axiomed sources of force in the universe. It's retarded. There's not quantum forces and bent space forces. There's one kind of mechanism in the universe, and if you think there's all kinds, it's playing chess, it's checkers and hopscotch. No, it's not. You're foolish if you think that, especially on this hairline evidence you have for your theories. Tiny shreds of evidence. Far, far, far away from the burden of what we call proof. Any rational person calls proof. Completely unproven proclamations. Alright. Let's see. Right now, quantum mechanics and general relativity are modeled with different equations and different laws. But that doesn't mean they're both wrong. It means they can be both wrong, and it means one of them probably has to be wrong by logical rules. So at least one of them's got to go. And it looks like bent space is getting slowly pushed out of the realm of that's the right answer, and they're going to quantumize that force. They're just going to recognize, well, I don't know how they're going to do it without frankly creating a graviton, a real one, a particle. So I think they're inevitable. It's inevitable that they will go back to a particle theory of gravity, because forces have to be particle in nature, or whatever you want to call it, packet, wave packet, wave packet gravity. Let's see. Doesn't mean they're both wrong. It just means there is probably a better model out there. So there you go. So the guy's conceding the model they have is flawed, yet he's saying those model builders should be allowed to control the destiny of model building, and he's saying if some model comes from somebody outside of that community of bad model makers, he has to obviously be an idiot. Obviously. Whatever. You're just a bigot. Yeah. Anyway. For instance, I think the Greeks, oh, that's wonderful. So this is, so we might as well go, what a Ken Wheeler fan are you, Carl? I think the Greeks and their models of motion of worldly elements versus the model of ether, aka stars, I don't know what that means. So, whatever, that sounds like babble. The laws they came up with were such that celestial bodies behaved far differently than worldly objects. And again, who would be interested in physics that didn't recognize that we're physical? But of course, there are observations were incorrect. So why you're bringing them up? Of what value is it to keep dragging the past up? It's just of no value, especially past mistakes. And it would be a grave mistake for Aristotle to have simply denied that stars move about the heavens in apparent ellipses, merely because this behavior was contrary to the laws of motion of the earth. Well, the problem was they didn't have enough explicit data, so Aristotle couldn't even make that judgment because he didn't have enough information to make it. I mean, it wasn't until Kepler and the guy who financed the production of that information that they could even do any of that work. Anyway, merely because this behavior was contrary to the laws of motion of the earth, and to me, and to people who are scientifically literate, so pretentious. So you don't bring anything to the table in terms of a demonstration of your literacy. There certainly wasn't any literacy in this comment. You didn't cite any phenomenon you were quite that you have a extensive knowledge about. I mean, is there some kind of mechanics you actually understand besides like a wind-up toy? I mean, where do we have any evidence that you have any scientific literacy, or especially literacy in the subject of physics? Oh, that's right, we have no evidence of that. People who are scientifically literate, this point is obvious. So I don't know, there was some kind of point in there somewhere. So he's claiming I have some bias, I guess, and I'm refusing to see the weight of the evidence, when I'd say it's exactly the opposite is overwhelmingly apparent. That the bias is for the wooey explanation on the thin evidence, for which they can't even consistently describe their woo. Every woo speaker speaks a little different kind of Copenhagen woo or many world woo. So they can't even tell the same frickin' made up story. And you're going to sit there and point fingers at me and say I'm somehow forcing the universe to fit my theory? That I'm somehow denying overwhelming evidence of something? No. It's a false and unjustifiable accusation. You've got nothing. You're just defending your religion and doing it in a very obnoxious manner. Okay, the fact that it's far from obvious to everybody else is disconcerting. So what should be obvious to them? That the not very good model that physics has built, full of bent, non-existent force fieldy things, creating gravity, and virtual photony like things, creating magnetism, and photons that almost can read our mind if we're watching them or not. They're paying attention, and they'll make sure they turn left or right based on whether we're watching. That shouldn't be disconcerting. So yes, obviously, Carl, we don't see anything anywhere near or similar or alike. And because you were so obnoxious and posted this comment twice, I'm going to delete it because you're obnoxious. Alright, so Charles Mugerner says, nah, he can do it. Well, whether or not I will be allowed to defend my theory in a fair battleground is the question. I mean, I'm seeking that. I'm seeking some physicist with a reputation to lose who's willing to defend their mush. And because I have the better theory. It fits the evidence better, and it fits the rational criteria of it doesn't have a bunch of contradictions in it, and it doesn't have any leprechauns in it, and there's no magical forces in it, unless you consider this magical. This as magical. If you consider that magical, well, yes, okay, then yes, it's a magical theory. Alright, so then Vic Mackey responds to the Dick. I think you're inferring quite a lot from my little post there. Yes, your little, whatever, game playing. Yes. There, Chief. Easy on the trigger. Yeah. So, but clearly, you did type it in capital letters as if this is some sort of important thing that's happening in physics, when it's just a niche group of physicists, and the title of the article was crap, because they're obviously not starting from the scratch position. They're starting from how many particles have we got in the accelerator. They're starting from that assumption, not from the base assumptions. What they know for sure, they're not starting from that ground. They're starting from the what do we maybe possibly think is possible, based on a little tiny bit of evidence. What's the things we have the smallest amount of evidence for? Let's believe in those. And the stuff that has the most evidence, we'll just ignore all that crap altogether. Because that's not wavy fun. Alright. So, some asshole, M7CVZ, an ugly video in so many ways. So this was a Ken Wheeler video. So you don't have anything positive to say of your own creation. The fact that you do is, a little bit scary. You think there's something brilliant about horny people fucking and making babies that they have no way in the world to control the outcome. And you're impressed by that. I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed with slobs being reckless. No. It doesn't turn me on. Idiot. Anyway. Alright, then this Nikolic Wigga. I mean, just fuck off with this bullshit, frankly, fella. I mean, you truther kooks. No, I mean, it's alright, he's not a truther. He's just a whack job. Yes, lensing is caused by multiple diffraction from accelerating mass. The lens is an accumulation of refraction from likely matter traveling at r accelerating at a constant. It doesn't make any sense at all. Therefore, the lens will appear for a time period only. But that time period is up to for some debate. Well, obviously, things move into different positions, and then you won't have a lens anymore. But you'll have one somewhere else. You'll see it somewhere else. My thoughts are not anything other than my thoughts. Well, probably keep them to yourself then. I mean, unless your thoughts are like, oh yeah, I thought that was a great thought, then that might be worth it. But otherwise, no, not so much. Mush. I don't need mush. Alright, so then Michael Folwell. This is another comment I didn't really... well, anyway. I did touch on LIGO's subject in a previous comment. Like I said, it seems to be a large-scale Michelson-Morley experiment. Well, it's a little more than that, but yeah, the idea, it's an interferometer, yes, so it's a big interferometer. Nothing wrong with that inherently. Which, when you consider that experiment was devised for, it's strange to think it's being conducted to the present day. Well, again, that doesn't have much to do with anything. The fact that when they made the interferometer for the first purpose is because it was a sensitive instrument for detecting differences in things. So it was a good scale. You could probably use it as a scale to measure weights and to do different things. It's not completely useless as a device, but I would argue that yes, if they're going to continue to misrepresent what's happening, then they're going to misrepresent its sensitivity. Alright, which has an annual budget of $7 billion. I don't know if it's that high, but that seems a little, that might be for the entire NHS or whatever it's called. But whatever. I don't think they spent $7 billion a year on LIGO. You can kind of understand that they want to show the public what great discoveries they are making with all that loot. It presents a healthy public image. Well, I mean, clearly the interested sciences want their niche science to be continued to be funded and all that kind of crap. But the bigger wrong is in their exaggeration and their lack of humility in presenting their proof. I am sure it's a very impressive piece of kit, but the premise behind its use is quite simply horseshit. Well, it's not entirely horseshit. So again, like I said, I think it would be a really good seismograph. It can do a lot of things. But yeah, I don't think it can measure hairs on Alpha Centauri. I don't think it can do that. I agree that it could be put to much more practical use in other areas of detection. Well, that should be the first thing they do with it, is demonstrate the thing can actually do incredible things. And they haven't allowed it to do any other incredible thing except this find, invisible black holes doing incredible things that no one even thought were possible. So when you're doing what no one even thought was possible, Einstein didn't think was possible. So they've made it do something Einstein didn't think was possible. But they made it do it in the way where, they just drew the picture. It's not like their proof is proofy. Their proof is very unproofy. I've always wondered, do insects fart? I'm sure LIGO could solve that age-old question. Well, that and some other questions, it really should be able to do some of that fun stuff. But yes, they're just too busy, completing the we've done it, celebration. By the way, your voice sounded a little different on this video. If I didn't know any better, I'd say you had been token on the old piece of pipe. Yeah, no, I don't do that much. But I did have some real cigarettes, so I don't know. Maybe that's it. Very good. Your interferometer is working well. I mean, he's blind, so I guess he hears those differences. Which is, sorry about that. I mean, my vocal skills have deteriorated over the last 10 years, I must say. Hardware's just not working as well as it used to. Anyway, DCQE. So I'm supposed to know what that is. Dick Cunt Quantum Electrification. Okay. Results demonstrate quite conclusively. So everything's demonstrated quite conclusively. And I would argue that no. I mean, it's conclusive by your standards, and I'd say your standards are way too low for what you call quite conclusive evidence. So, fail, I guess I'd say. That what is at the core of such phenomenon is information availability. So isn't that a charming little pile of crap? Because this Susskind guy started this whole information shit, I guess, and it's just, it's just such a pile of shit. It's a cause and effect universe. But clearly the causes are erased as events when time moves from the present, from the past to the future. It erases an awful lot of the past in doing that. So calling it information is just bullshit. Leaving VR models any flavor as the only sensible interpretation known as of yet. So just ridiculous nonsense. In my ho opinion, yeah, she is a hoe, like as opposed to imaginary universes. So a VR model is better than an imaginary universe. And that doesn't make any sense. I won't delete it, but it's just a crappy piece of shit as a comment, frankly. So again, the Nicolo guy, Nyluk. Yes, seems strange. You would think it would be a negative shadow. Surely that's what it's doing. No signature. It's negative tons. All the black ones, no reds. That wouldn't work. Yes, that works. It's not a very useful comment either. You really should kind of quote bits from the video. Just some kind of continuity, I think, would be appropriate. Alright, so here's a Ken Wheeler Defender. From the way Ken describes it, if you watch his earlier videos, Space is privation of ether. So yes, so why doesn't he just say that? Yes, there is empty space. So that's where there's no ether. Okay, fine. This means it's a shadow space. Okay, it's being shadowed from the ether somehow. Alright. Cannot exist without the ether. Well, I guess that was an assumption because you used the word privation of ether before, so I guess that would be the way you can have a shadow is just somewhere there has to be a light. So yes, the light combined with the space makes shadows. No. The light combined with the something makes the privation, which is space. Which that just sounds like crap. But anyway, you can call the ether what you like. Nonsense. How about that? Quantum force, quantum soup, 0-point energy. Crap. Crap would be the word I would use. Absolute crap, maybe. The loss of inertia is the magnetism ether. So, loss of inertia, which again, what does that even mean? I don't even know what a loss of inertia is. So something stops moving and that becomes magnetism. That gives rise to the universe, a bold statement. I don't know. Yes, it's a bold statement of crap, a big giant piece of crap, boldly bold crap. Oh dear, there's a whole bunch of this shit. I don't know if it's really worth it. Too loop-de-doo. Alright, anyway, so we'll zip through some of this. The loss of inertia is magnetism. That gives rise to the universe, a bold statement. Maybe. From Faraday's time, we have two rules that define fields. The field lines of an electric field and a magnetic field. Well, again, the field lines are kind of, they're not a real representation of the real force. The force isn't a line. The force is a radiation coming out of the magnet. Magnetic fields can terminate on themselves and fill space, or whatever that means. Dielectric electric fields can only terminate on metal surfaces. They cannot terminate in space. So again, this idea that something terminates when obviously it's just converted. So you want to call that a termination. That's not unlike conventional physics, saying every interaction is a annihilation event and a creation event. When no, it's just a transmission event from this to this. Alright, well, we're not going to bother with the rest of this mush. Ken's theory has no mechanism. You want to keep pretending there's something he's saying that's reasonable. His drawings are just moving shit, all kinds of crap, but nothing to describe why two magnets stick together or why they repel. No model of how any of it happens. Clearly, the Earth and the Sun, it's not just some sort of magnetism. You can't just say, oh, it's the magnetic field. No, it's not nearly enough. I'm just saying there's no, you can't bring nothing in terms of a model, and there's nothing as a model. Alright, so another LIGO comment from Paralogic. Parapolylogic. Okay. For one, the LIGO experiment is unfalsifiable. I don't know if that's true. Furthermore, the logic, it's unfalsifiable in the sense that, yes, it's going to be really hard to prove the black hole doesn't exist. Furthermore, the logic of the experimental analysis is circular. Well, clearly there's elements of risk of where you're validating your own theory by theorizing your validation or whatever. Yes. You know, your axioms are your conclusions. That's dangerous. They claim the effect, the chirp, as proof of the cause, the black hole collision, while also claiming the cause as proof of the effect. Yes, it's not unlike the lensing and dark matter thing. You know, the lensing is proof of the dark matter. And, you know, clearly the dark matter, can explain the lensing. Yeah. neither of which can in any way be independently established outside of the hypothetical experimental model. Yes, clearly there's no corroboration of any of this crap they're claiming they heard. The conclusion is the conclusion is predicated on a formal logical fallacy. It makes a mockery of both the scientific method and anyone who can't see the embarrassing obvious fact. Yeah, it's just very disappointing that everything that comes along, people just gobble it right up when there wasn't any discussion about these theoretical concepts. Again, now it's premised. We have a new established fact that you can convert matter into bent space. Not into radiation, not into photons, not into some quantum mechanical energy, but somehow into bent space. And nobody even debated it that I saw. There was never even a question, and now that's an established fact of this proof. Amazing. Nope. Let's see, Carl says, if you hear birds outside, you can make a reasonable conclusion that there are birds outside. It might be a trick of sound, it might just be wind blowing, but the closer the sound you hear is to what you expect birds to sound like, the stronger your conclusion. Well, exactly the point here, though. They're claiming a very extraordinary, they're claiming UFOs knocked on my door. It's an extraordinary claim, not an ordinary claim. And so again, you don't have any higher standard for evidence. I mean, if they were claiming we heard an event in the universe somewhere, something happened, well, okay, you could, all right, maybe something big happened. But they're saying something very explicit. We were looking for black holes in binary systems that convert matter into bent space, and we found that. You're really not following along here at all. That's not a fallacy. You don't understand logic. So he thinks it's logical to accept the theory that a UFO knocked on my door last night instead of the theory that a raccoon climbed up on the thing and knocked a can over. Anyway. So Carl says back, you are to logic as whatever that is, are to lap dance, paraplegics, I guess, are to lap dancing. Well, that's sort of a mean thing to say, to, rub it in the paraplegic's nose like that. It's just kind of rude. I mean, you should try to, I mean, look, I call people pigs and shit, and that's not fair to pigs, but I'm just saying. I mean, I'll just point it out that that's kind of rude, just so maybe in the future you try not to do that, because that's just kind of rude. I'm a little surprised that one of your listeners hasn't already contacted a physicist and said, this is Ron Johnson, and said, check this channel out and see if this guy makes sense. It seems that someone would comment, a professor or a working physicist would at least point you towards their beliefs. They're, like I said, I mean, the ones I've contacted, the ones that have responded, respond with some kind of generic, let's see, what do they say? It's just very cop-out-ish, like, I'm pursuing my own theories or some kind of thing like that, where they think they're somehow getting tainted or, and it's the same old dodge. Go get published. Like, I'm. The whole point is that I'm saying that your community is so biased that there's no point in making the argument to the community. You don't have open doors as a policy. I knew a physicist, probably dead now, and he moved to West Virginia. Lived out in the boonies. He said physics was very political, so he got out. Can't remember the conversation clearly, but maybe he did physics with the physical things like you, and believed, and believers of Wu didn't like his ideas. Well, the problem is I can't say that 99% of, well, it's really 100% of the other cranks, are just that, cranks. Their arguments are kind of cheaty. It's very disappointing. Even the dissident science guy, I noticed on his channel, he has a whole bunch of other related channels. And every one of his videos, as soon as he uploads it, he apparently thumbs it up from all the other channels. So there's 12 thumbs up, when the video's been up for 10 minutes. And it's just that little kind of stuff. Those are all little character issues, and you just say, cutting corners, and it just seems like the same bullshit. Just somebody else trying to sell they're not trying to save people from the dioxin. They're just trying to come up with a way to sell their poison. Anyway, so Edgar Renegade guy, or whatever. So he's quoting the other guy, and he does his bra-ha-ha-ha stuff, about contact. I'm a little surprised none of your listeners have already contacted physicists. Okay, and so Edgar says, "Oh my God, please tell me you're not serious. For one thing, let's suppose lots of listeners have sent physicists lots of letters already. How would you ever know this? I mean, how do you know they haven't already done this?" Yes, they may have, and we're just, who knows what the percentage of physicists, again, they have nothing to gain. You have to understand, right? I mean, unless they love science, they have nothing to gain by interacting with me if I look at all competent. Now, if they could, wipe me out like I was a 9/11 truther or a flat earther, well, then they'd have an argument. They'd say this might be fun. But I would argue that it's not going to be that easy for them. I mean, how do you know they haven't already done this? You see what I'm saying? Do you get it? You get it? ? It's funny. Whatever. Dear Edgar Durag, you misspelled Guad. Well, yeah, he did that on purpose. But anyway, maybe your first language isn't English. My surprise doesn't constitute a nasty comment from you. I wouldn't know whether anyone has contacted another scientist, but if they had, and that scientist then responded to a video, then I would know, exactly. Alright, then Carl comes back. Since you're on the topic of poor spelling and general language skills, indicative of a subhuman mental capacity, I should point out that you misspelled the other YouTuber's name. You spelled surprise with a Z, you fucking moron. And you don't seem to know that constitute is not a synonym for warrant. Well, pretty much is, but whatever. Based on these things, I'd venture a guess you yourself do not speak English fluently and are probably either way to show your intelligence. An illegal alien mooching off the government. Well, you're showing you're so enlightened. Illegal. Let's say we had the worst, most derogatory opinion of illegal aliens possible. I think we could say with quite a bit of certainty that they wouldn't be commenting on this video. You're a fuckhead. Either way, you're a waste of some perfectly good organs. And then Ron just says, show a little respect. But they can't do it. Trolls will be trolls. Blah, 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 blah. Alright, so J. Ash says, I don't know if I got to this one or not. Also, if photons are supposedly affected by gravity, wouldn't the photons that provide us with the image of, say, yes, we already did this, say the sun reach us later than they should? So, yes, no, it's one of their premises, is the photons can only be moved sideways. They can't be moved forward or back. So, that's one of their rules from the Magic Rule Factory. Alright, so that's enough. Got rid of the comments anyway. There's some, like I said, I'm still working on different thoughts. So I don't know what the next video will be on, but we'll see how it goes and such.